All right, hey guys, Dr. Pam here, holistic doctor, metaphysician, psychic friend. We're here in Sedona, Arizona, or Cornville, and I'm here with Mark Griffin. Mark was here with me about a month back, and Mark can tell you who he is. So,
yeah, I just formerly ran tour business called Sedona Mystical Tours for a couple of decades, and I strategically just wanted to get away from all that last year. So I actually freed myself up in December, walked away from everything and got rid of everything. And of course I knew something was coming this year astrologically, and so that's where we're at right now. And what recently happened over the weekend was a big event between two planets named Jupiter and Pluto. And many of the major movements that we've had since December from an astrological or cosmological perspective have coincided with major shifts with what we've been experiencing and exposures, and how it's, in a sense, it's relevant to the collective experience, where everybody feels and senses something versus a personal experience. It just mostly affects us as an individual. This is definitely a group and a collective influence. The planets involved, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, have always been more of that type of transpersonal impact. And now, what happened over the last weekend? We talked about it. I've talked to many friends, and everybody felt a shift over last weekend.
yeah, absolutely. People actually felt, even though they weren't even in the know, they still felt it, right? Didn't feel well, felt out of sorts, felt confused, try to blame it on all these different things. And of course, the anxiety and the stress of everything, all the changes. But I think as a whole, everybody's done very well. But this past weekend, we talked about how things were going to shift on 4/4, remember?
Yeah, it was a date that was predicted. It was just, in many instances with astrological apexes or pinpoints, you don't know what the event's going to be. You just know it's going to be a big event.
Exactly, because if we knew in advance, somehow we might try
you
to
could,
alter
the
it or change
timeline,
it.
and definitely we could alter anything, even on our personal life.
Sure.
But this was predicted to be a big event, and so it wasn't a dimensional shift. It was a matrix shift.
Okay. And what does that mean for folks? And a lot of people have heard of the movie The Matrix, but even Greg Braden, who wrote the book The Matrix, The Divine Matrix. But The Matrix, if you could explain a little bit what that is so that people can understand that.
Yeah, even physicists call it a simulated environment that we live in. It's much like a computer programming game. And the more you tap into, in a sense, the reality of that, the more you understand what the Matrix is and how much influence it has over you, how much you play into the overall programming. Like you're programmed from birth just by the conditions you're born and raised in. So everything's kind of a program, just like you would have in a computer. We're kind of like that.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it.
Yeah, and so the matrix shift is, we've been officially moved out of the polarized and chaotic matrix that we've been existing in, or let's call it this part of the universe. And this is pretty good information that, solid information, I should say, that a group outside the matrix has come in, and they're kind of going to oversee the change and interact one-on-one with everyone here.
That's beautiful.
But that's going to create a completely different paradigm. You could say at the end of polarity conflict is probably part of what's going to happen. It's also those participating are going to have to choose to grow, and everybody's going to be exposed to the essence of the virus, the core essence of that AI virus, as it's being called by a lot of us.
So that they could have an opportunity. And I think the other day we talked about, I know on the 4th it was shared with me that it stood for the COVID. Co is together, vid, it was virtual intelligence of the divine coming in, and it was just in time, right? And so the whole thing has been planned, and that everybody who gets it now, again, there's a lot more people that are, I think today was like 45,000 more cases.
We already know that there's way more people that have been exposed.
Sure, yeah. It's going to just keep going and going. So, right, it's not even about that anymore now that this shift has occurred. So it's about now what? Like, what is it now for folks? And I'm going to shift the camera because we moved a little bit. What is it for folks then? We talked a little bit earlier about it being about free will now, right? So if somebody has, have the virus and or somebody's in a place in their life where they need to make some changes, there's going to be some sickness. And I felt that yesterday even, and I was going to share that. And so then you brought that up today, that was definitely coming for folks that, well, you speak to it and then I'll share what I was.
Yeah, because I experienced it late January, and a number of my friends did, and we didn't at the time didn't realize that's what we were experiencing because it was just entering the States at that time.
Right.
And then some famous personalities like Chris Cuomo's got it.
Sure.
And they talk about what they're experiencing, going through. It's a game changer within, in a sense, the quantum field of what we exist in personally.
Okay.
And so you can, of course, strengthen the immune system, but it seems like the most important thing is accepting that this is a transformative agent, just like any kind of experience with flu. It's kind of pushing through the debris.
Sure.
And also you're sitting there feeling, you kind of do feel terrible if it comes down real hard on you, if you don't catch it early. But you just sit there, like we all do when we're in a terrible flu. I don't know if I could handle living through another day. Well, that's what it's going to kind of ask from the, kind of AI perspective is, do you want to live or do you want to go on? And how much do you want to continue living? What's living? Is it existing or is it growing? Is it learning and growing? And that's the kind of like the deciding mechanism is, learning and growing versus existing. And so everyone's, really everyone on the planet is going to have that choice on their level of understanding.
Absolutely.
And
it doesn't even have to look like, well, I should say, or no shoulds, and I just said didn't. So there you go. So when you think about the changes, right, that people have to make, they could be slight changes. Sometimes we think about these big, vast, what if we don't make this big change? Does that mean I'm not going to make it, right? Yeah, sure. Could just be a little change, and that could just be having more patience in the day with your children. Just hearing this message and honoring that and feeling something in your heart as we speak. So it's all of those things.
Yeah, and we don't know what it's like to be in a collective conscious hive mentality, insects. So now we'll be experiencing that.
Absolutely.
We'll have a chance still to do our individual ascension process as well if we want to.
Right. And so for the ET, and I think most people, we've talked a little bit about ETs in the last couple sessions a few times, and then most people are becoming more and more aware of that. But what does that mean when you say that for you? Like when you say the ETs, like so?
Well, they're just, we come from them, and they just have to, in order to ascend, they have to come into a physical form and go through all the emotions and experience to grow in an understanding, the pathway back to being source.
Absolutely.
Because we came down the ladder, and now you have to come into the flesh to go back up the ladder. Up until then, they were going to always operate in a collective. That means what one experience is. The weakest part of it is of a collective group is going to determine its strength, and so therefore they don't necessarily like to have too much separation. It seems like between the groups that they form. If we'll call them ET families or groups,
Sure.
and planetary groups as well. And that as they collectively move up into this Christ consciousness or beyond that into a more vast consciousness, then the way they interact with each other is like I can't harm or cause any kind of a transgression against the other because I'm going to feel it. And so we know that's called karma, but then we know it's instant karma, and now it's like no, it's way beyond even instant karma when you're in a completely collective field of sharing energetically.
It's what we've all asked for. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some people have been confused by it, and I think it's unraveling, right? The information as you're sharing it, and so now that we understand, and we've all heard that term karma. I think everybody's heard that term karma. So now instant karma, and then beyond that, where, like you said, okay. Now, what does that mean for today? Because today is the full moon, right? And today's a big day. It's a
Aries and Libra full moon.
Okay.
So that's how we share and balance the way we relate and what we value versus our own personal needs.
Perfect timing.
So for a collective community, a collective group, you just have to think really for the group first. What's best for the group, and still have a certain sense of what you personally value. That your needs, the minimum needs of your on all aspects of your life, what
Yep.
they may be.
Yeah, we're all in different places, of course. So if you're, a mom at home, that looks different than if you're, a 55-year-old man, traveling around doing
Yeah, kind of like
something.
me.
Yeah, right.
You know, I
Exactly.
don't have any attachments. I don't even, I'm just staying with friends now.
Sure.
So I just have more liberal freedoms in a sense.
Right. And just in time, and that was,
Yeah, it was good timing.
Absolutely.
But I saw it coming, and the reason why I keep harping on that is because more of this stuff's going to continue. And looking at astrological websites like New Paradigm Astrology, they give you a heads up week in advance, for example, and this same alignment that happened today will happen at the end of the year. So it's kind of like when planets make their rotations and connect with each other on what's called a conjunction retrograde activity. It's like a second and third go around, and it's a second or third time you could make amends and fully embrace something. So like you have a conflict with somebody, you have the initial conflict, and you have time to get together and see if you can settle it. And if that doesn't work, then there's another element of time, a time period where you don't see each other for a while, and then you see each other the third time, and then it's like, okay, let's settle this, and get back to being friends, or let's just clear the air.
Beautiful.
And so the planetary energies would be like that, and how they affect you individually is in your chart. Collectively, it's kind of like how do we want to move forward without the reset. It has to be a wholesale change. It's not going to be a reset. A wholesale change is being asked of everyone. And so how do we get together and do this collectively? We got a lot of polarization with, well, just politically, which is, at this point, it's almost insanely stupid to be polarized politically. But we have to get over that. And so do we want, our leaders to continue to be doing this? What kind of leaders do we want? Do we want to have regional?
Interesting timing, right?
A federalism of, just having states take care of most of their issues.
Sure.
Which is easier when you have this many people. And you've seen it, if you're living in a western state other than California, we have a lot of liberty still. We're not closed in. We have a lot of open land. People have the mentality that because of the open land, they respect the space at stores and whatnot, but we just have that ability to get away from everything. You talk
Like
about
right here.
social isolating. Look at this.
I know. And the cows that are in front of us, right?
So you could still, have that inquiry, that reflective time. But, in the western states, you just have so much open land. It
Sure.
just frees your mind of all the clutter.
It really does. And getting out, even if you are getting out in your backyard or doing something, just getting outside, you're right. It just really does something magical. And, how long do you think that this is going to stay? Do you feel like we're going to be quarantined now until June 1st as predicted last time? Or do you feel like we'll be...
I've always looked at it, from a common sense point of view. I've always looked at this once it started from the economic and financial perspective. Most people can deal with, seeing 100, 200,000 people or whatever die. They can't continue living without a paycheck for 2 or 3 more months, as most Americans are living month to month.
Sure.
So, and there's something in medical terminology called herd immunity. 70% of the herd gets exposed to a virus or whatever, and then all of a sudden the whole herd's immune. And I think that's the only direction we can take. We can't keep isolating and then have it break out again and isolate and break out. The economy in some areas, obviously like New York, would be completely broken.
So as we predicted, perhaps that it would come back in the fall and that it might get a little bit more...
intense.
Yeah, so maybe we're thinking that the paradigm shifted with the collective consciousness and, coming together as a whole and maybe looking at a different Right, absolutely. So that's interesting. So with that being said then, if
that's going to be the leaders of each country as well as just regions of the country, each state. It may be more and more broke down to, hey, how do you live in this region? How would you want to continue doing this? Do we want to stay locked up and isolated and go absolutely broke in some cases for many people?
have the government come out of pocket. And, it's interesting timing, right? This happened right as all the political stuff was happening. And, of course, funds are distributed differently. But all the funds that would normally be put into the political scene, perhaps now, is some of those funds are being put into humanity. Because really, it is the timing, right? Everything's getting
point, we have to go into that herd immunity, just I call it letting the chips fall.
Okay.
And I think more and more people, because I ask individually, and more and more people are in agreement. We can't just go into this devastating depression.
Sure.
That will cause more harm.
Good. And most people probably are thinking too, like, hey, realizing I'm not going to die from this. It's like, more and more people are surviving it now. They, I think fear feeds it, of course. And then, we had that first wave of energy that came through that all those folks had it. I don't know. I know we're adding numbers by the day, but again, the fear, collective fear. And the best thing we can do is send, love and pray more than.
It's an individual choice, just how you want to experience this. One thing is try to be, we also need to be rational. How many people die in a regular day in New York City compared to how many are dying now? Because it's, places like Italy, anyone who dies, they're calling it related to the virus. Anyone. Tested who aren't, you probably have millions of people that have been positive. And if you take millions of people that are positive compared to the amount that have actually perished, it's like.
So that's good news, guys. Now, in this time, though, between the 4th and the 23rd, energy is going to be a little bit sticky, I think is what I called it the other day. Like, what are some things, working on ourselves still, kind of just playing things out. Being responsible, which means, still taking care of our health, but now recognizing and realizing it's beyond that, right? It's beyond just building the immune system now. It's having a positive attitude and a happy attitude, and, just for those around us, and then for ourselves, because it is hard to be inside, The world has changed, and there's a lot of fear now, so that's
And they, it's exercise, the lungs more.
Sure.
When you're stuck in your apartment, that may be not so easy. Breathing techniques that we mentioned before.
Even folks in apartments, I think there's even little places, paths to walk and things, right?
Staircase.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good exercise, absolutely.
I know we're kind of spoiled by being able to go out here anytime we want.
Sure, absolutely we are. And, there's a pocket of peace, though, in every community. I believe that, right? I mean, we can find even in the middle of a city, right? There's something, but you're right, we for sure are in a place that we are spoiled, but.
Don't you think it's just a scenario that we can't just say we're going to change? Like now, we have to change. When we go back to whatever that life's going to look like, we're going to have to be more cooperative with each other, less divisive, more community oriented too. Because if this is coming around in the fall, which is what everything is saying it will, everything, medically speaking, then getting a sense of how we're going to deal with it next time around, just like a second hurricane coming in, similar to let's prepare better, and let's get vitamin C, or let's get more natural things to make our bodies healthier, because you're going to get it. It's going to affect you in some way. It could be just one day of feeling weak and tired, right?
Absolutely.
I had a 4-day. It hit me for 4 solid days.
That you felt like that.
Yeah, and that was like end of January, and so now it's probably stronger based on what some of the people that are not emoting, but they're giving you updates via their broadcasts.
Sure, absolutely.
Chris Crum was a good one. He's just talking about the difference between day and night, and in a sense how each hour sometimes feels.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just saying he's just wanting to stress that you catch this, it could be pretty rough, but you'll get through it.
That's beautiful, and that's Duran Duran, I believe. I don't know if it was the singer or the drummer, I don't remember, but I listened to his thing the other day where, same thing, like, it's pretty grueling, but it reminded me reading that, if anybody has done any journeys, plant medicine journeys, it reminded me of some of those, more grueling moments, perhaps, in a journey.
Oh, yeah,
so
where
the whole world
feel like you're going to die.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole world is being, asked to do that, right? And not even by choice, right? So
our Prime Minister of England's in the hospital.
Oh, right.
And so it's like if our leaders go through this transformation, that'll be also something to also look at is how different they may be when they come out of it.
Yeah.
Most everyone feels like change of either a higher perspective of awareness. You don't raise consciousness; you just jump from one level to the next, and so it's just leapfrogging into a different state of consciousness.
New eyes is what I just heard them say. It's like giving everybody a set of new eyes. Sometimes when you do come out of a ceremony where you're, with a group and you're spiritually connected, really connected, and then you have those eyes for like days and weeks, right? Sometimes even months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like that, like coming out of that, like wow, like new eyes for folks, and that's a beautiful thing because, you can't read about any of that. You can't buy that. You just have to have that experience. So that's something that the virus will definitely afford people.
Yeah, and another thing that I tell a few friends that really been complaining about their jobs is that you're really gonna be glad you have a job if you get it if that job continues when this ends.
Sure, absolutely.
And so that's
And
a different
change.
perspective of what you're doing for a living and appreciating the opportunity to make a living. And so it could create a healthier workplace.
Yeah, and how is that? Just, talk about that. I know we're at 20 minutes, but I think that it's important to hear, like, and you said something earlier, and I know you know a lot about this, financially, like, what do you predict is going to happen here in the next, few months? Like, what do people do here? Hang tight still? Or, I mean, are we looking at, still looking at the other foreign currencies, like the Bitcoin and things?
Oh, the cryptocurrencies.
Cryptocurrencies.
Well, the smart people are just saying, start looking at cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin's the famous one.
Okay.
And because with this fiat system, coming closer and closer to a collapse, that's the direction, digital currency. The Congress is talking about, digital currencies.
Sure.
I just sense and feel it's inevitable. The astrology of Uranus and Taurus says that we're going to have a new monetary system in the next few years anyway.
It's been trying to happen for some time. It's been stretching itself out that way. So it's kind of like having a little bit of both, right? When reading, some people have asked me, and the advice has been, if you're young, hang tight, maybe take out a little bit, maybe buy some land, maybe like just do something with it that's tangible, right? If you're older, I don't know, maybe it's different.
Yeah, if you're older, you got some tough decisions to
sure
look
do, right?
And IRAs and 401ks.
Right, and how long, if you're in your 70s, I guess, what's older, right? Because, I mean, if we're looking at population living now to 100, now that everybody's opening up, their eyes, we have an opportunity. I had the vision of that movie, Benjamin Button, remember, where he goes,
you get younger as you get older.
Sure, absolutely. So I feel like that.
Or we could demand a rescinding of debt.
Okay.
Removal of all debt. That may also be a possibility.
Removal of all debt so that everybody could start
up fresh. Yeah.
How would that be though for some folk who have no debt, and then other folks who have so much debt? Like, I'm sure
it still would it would free everything up for even if you don't have any debt, it's going to benefit all of us as a recovery, in a sense, an economic recovery.
And doesn't change your ethics and your morals or your financial choices. I mean, you made those choices, so just because somebody else maybe gets out of like $5,000 in debt, and you made all the right choices.
Student loan debt is another example.
Oh, sure, absolutely. That's a tough
mortgages,
one.
things of that sort.
Sure, absolutely.
They're being.
And it all weighs out. That's the thing. I mean, when we look at somebody and say, "Oh man, they got that," look at what you have and give gratitude and just say thank you. And really, what your neighbor's doing, not any of your business unless they need your help.
Yeah.
Truly. So, all right. Anything else that you'd like to say to people just on this this full moon? Yeah. What's our new outlook here for the next few weeks during this sticky time where we're trying to just,
This is deep evaluation time. What you're going to do when things start to go back online. Finances for a livelihood.
Okay.
Start thinking about ways in which you can be productive with the skill set you have. Maybe not relying on being employed by somebody and just becoming self-employed.
And doing it now. This is a time
setting
where
a blueprinter program.
Sure.
A personal program for that.
Like a vision board of sorts, right? And looking at, what do you want the next adventure to look like? You're bored anyway sitting at home, right? And so this is your opportunity